Hello, everyone, and welcome to Access Mob Pittsburgh's Community Lecture Night on Mutual Aid. My name is Alisa Grishman, and I am a fat white woman with brown curly hair, wearing a kind of mint green shirt, and sitting in a blue room with art on the wall behind me. For those of you unfamiliar, in spaces like this, we tend to describe ourselves as an access means for both people who are low vision and for people who are on low bandwidth or using their phones. So before we begin, I want to take a second to, first of all, welcome all of you. This is the biggest group that we've ever had. I'm so proud of everyone for showing up. We had to upgrade our Zoom account because of so many people signing up. So please, thank you for being part of this work. I especially want to thank my board of directors, Debbie, Donna, Kendra, Mallory, Monica, and Nyota. Our meeting manager, Katie. Our fiscal sponsor is Disability Pride Pennsylvania. So thank you to them for helping us, run our organization. And final incredible amount of thanks to the Opportunity Fund, who has provided us the grant that we are using to fund all of these wonderful lectures. This is being recorded, and after the event is done, I will put a link to the live stream up on our website so that you can go back and rewatch it. Closed captions are available, and a link to the transcript will be in the chat. Please remain muted and turn your cameras off during the thing if you're not one of the speakers. Stay muted unless you're specifically called on. The chat is disabled between participants. You may create a new chat with Access Mob Pittsburgh or the host in the chat if you have a question or a problem. If you need to see how, there is a link being posted in the chat. If we have time for a Q&A at the end, please raise your hand with the virtual reaction or let the facilitator know if there's a problem and wait to be called on. You will be asked to unmute and or turn on your camera. You may ask your question verbally or in ASL, or type your question in the chat for Access Mob to read aloud. Do not turn on your camera unless you need to speak in ASL and wait for the interpreter to acknowledge you. For those of you on your phones, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. If we don't have time to get to everyone's questions, you can email anything afterwards to accessmobpittsburgh@gmail.com, and we will pass on your questions to the speakers. And at the end of this lecture, we will be sending out an email that's going to contain a survey that we would really love you to fill out. It helps us learn what we're doing well, what we need to do better, and just more about the people who are coming to attend our events. There's also going to be a resource list that I was provided. I'll be sending that out to all the attendees, and I'll be sending out a link to the video on YouTube for you to go back and rewatch. So tonight or tomorrow that will go out. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speakers. Opal is a longtime community leader with over 35 years of experience in community organizing, social work, and other helping and leadership roles across disability, queer, youth, faith, and immigration spaces. Opal is an autistic, trans, non-binary, and multiply disabled parent of autistic, disabled, queer, and trans children. They lead with empathy, precision, and tenacity. Opal facilitates the largest mutual aid network in the region, which is the Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid Network, and is deeply committed to working for a world that is equitable, joyful, and just. Outside of work, Opal enjoys singing, birding, hiking, Hallmark movies, faith-based projects, and planning for Christmas year-round. Daeja Baker is a tireless advocate, a years-long activist, and social worker. Born and raised in the north side of Pittsburgh, in 2017 she founded Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality, a group that continues to support our city's most marginalized people, or marginalized neighbors. Daeja utilizes her background in social work and writing to help elect progressives up and down the ballot. Her political efforts uplift our most vulnerable in Allegheny County. She's the new school board director for Shaler Area School District, Region 1. So without further ado, although give me a second to switch slide decks, but I would like to just welcome Opal and Daeja.
Thank you so much, Elisa. We really appreciate you inviting us to join you this evening to talk about mutual aid. My name is Opal. I am the executive director for um, Pittsburgh Center for Disability Justice. We were formerly known as Pittsburgh Center for Autistic Advocacy. I am a white, mask-presenting, non-binary person with very short hair, and I'm wearing headphones and a plaid shirt. How about Deja?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Deja. Uh, I'm so humbled to be here. Honestly, thank you so much for showing up. I am a Black woman with turquoise curly hair and large glasses. I have on a light blue shirt, and there is a door and white walls behind me. And I think we can get started now.
Amazing. So, you all came here tonight to talk about mutual aid. Mutual aid is a thing that we have been hearing about in media and through the zeitgeist and with our friends and in conversation more and more these days. And so you're wondering, what is mutual aid? What is it? What does that mean? Why is it so critical? Why is everyone talking about it? And we're going to talk about that tonight. Um,
I will read the
uh,
slide.
awesome.
That's okay. All right. So, our first slide reads, Mutual aid, we keep us safe. Here is how. A presentation by Opal and Daeja Baker. There is a light blue background photo or graphic with a hand holding up a person in a wheelchair. Are we ready for the next slide, Opal? Okay, next slide. Okay, we were already introduced, so I will just go through our IDs for the photos. So Opal is a white mask presenting person with short hair, wearing a navy blue blazer and blue shirt in the photo on the screen. And I am a Black woman with large glasses, curled turquoise hair, and a black shirt with a large red heart sitting in front of a brick wall.
Next slide. What is mutual aid? Um, so the definition on screen right now on the slide is mutual aid is when people come together to support one another by meeting the needs of community directly without the help of a formal organization, government, or other system. Mutual aid in action says we can meet our own needs together. So what does that mean? We'll dig into that a lot more this evening, but very briefly, that means that mutual aid is direct person to person, people group to group, people to people without the barriers or the structures of formal systems or charities. Next slide, please. Where did mutual aid begin? Well, mutual aid began in prehistory for humans, but mutual aid, the formal concept, there was a Russian philosopher and biologist. His name was Pyotr Kropotkin. Um, excuse my pronunciation. He coined the term mutual in the book, the writing Mutual Aid, a Factor for Evolution in 1902. He argues that mutualism cooperation is the driving force of evolution as opposed to competition. The fittest, in his view, as in survival of the fittest, were those who mutually supported the community they were part of. His work provided a challenge to social Darwinism, which was the prevailing philosophy of the time. Um, he was kind of a pioneer of that era because, again, he challenged the prevailing philosophy of social Darwinism, which was survival of the fittest. Next slide, please. And then we fast forward a lot, right? And let's talk about the historical context of mutual aid. What are other examples? Where did we see this occurring in history? Very early examples of mutual aid in human societies are from indigenous peoples. There are countless examples of these. Later, we have post-World War II communities and groups such as the Mennonite Mutual Aid Group. And this was, of course, after we started using the term mutual aid. Whereas, indigenous peoples, those examples that we have, that it was just life. It wasn't like this formal thing that had a name. The Mennonite Mutual Aid Group met the needs directly of Mennonites and other people within communities that had heavy Mennonite presences. The Freemasons and Rotary groups, especially early, were examples of mutual aid. They provided free medical clinics in communities that they were in. The most notable example of mutual aid in the United States is the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and their free breakfast program. I'm sure most of the folks here have at least heard of that program that started in Philadelphia, and they provided free meals to school children. Their pioneering work for food access was so successful that it shaped education and nutrition policy in the US for decades after they began providing free meals to school-aged children. Healthcare collectives largely run by lesbian women and Catholic nuns in the early days of the AIDS crisis in the US are another example. Those collectives are where I got my own start organizing. I began doing this work myself in the 1980s. Within those kinds of healthcare collectives, providing direct care to mostly men, mostly gay men dying of AIDS. The Freedom House Ambulance Service is an example that we have here in Pittsburgh of mutual aid. That became the modern EMT services that we know of today. That's an example of how communities came together to meet their own needs and were so successful in doing so that their models were adopted and deployed nationally by other groups and governments. So Freedom House in Pittsburgh started as an ambulance service for Black and Brown communities. And the model that they used, again, was so successful that it's used all over the country now today. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Sorry, it was repetitive.
And Deja's going to take over from here.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about some present day examples. I chose the larger cities because I think that we actually have a lot to learn from the systems that they have built outside of the traditional systems and governmental and non-governmental systems that we have. So in New York and DC, there is an organization called Fuel the People. Guided by the belief that food is fuel for the revolution, Fuel the People works to provide nourishment to protesters on the front lines, support local Black and POC, which is people of color, owned restaurants and businesses, and donate to local organizations who work tirelessly to support Black liberation. The fight for liberation and justice goes beyond protests, and we must remember that Black joy and prosperity are also worth fighting for. I think this is really important to me personally as someone who has been on the front lines quite often. After 2020, we decided to start doing more care in the activist spaces. And I believe that that has really strengthened our communities and brought us towards mutual aid a lot more in the community, and being able to take care of each other as activists, and also move from the idea that we have to be on the front lines to be a part of the movement. And I think that's a really important point to make. So in LA, there's the Mutual Aid Network Los Angeles. And one piece of that, one piece of the many pieces, I'm so jealous. They have so many great things. One piece is Produce in the Park. And that speaks to me because I do a lot with feeding our unhoused and our disabled neighbors here. So the LA Mutual Aid Network Produce in the Park. Everyone is welcome to come and grab produce, volunteer, or hang out. Spanish speakers are especially needed and utilized during this produce distro. I will say that we do a really good job in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County of food distribution. So I'm very proud of us for that. And I think that we are kind of up there with some of the best cities around the country. So just wanted to mention that we're doing a good job. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we had a disability-focused organization in our presentation. This one comes from New York, Sydney, the Center for Independence of the Disabled New York. And what they offer are SSI and SSDI help, employment help, food access, peer counseling, healthcare help, individual and systems advocacy, skills training, transportation help, housing help, youth services, and long-term care help. I love this because they have a hub for all of these things. I know that locally, for the most part, we have different organizations doing these different things. So I love how New York has come together to put one organization together that works with other organizations under their umbrella to do all of these different things for their disabled community. So that's why I chose to talk a little bit about Sydney today. Next slide, please. Opal, do you want to talk about challenges?
Sure. From here on, Deja and I will probably jump in and out together. We might overtalk a little bit. We'll do our best not to do that, but we'll both be engaged at the same time from here on. So we talked about a little bit about what mutual aid is. And mutual aid in practice, it can be challenging. So what are some of the challenges within mutual aid structures? So the slide on the screen says it can be difficult to be in community with folks who are mentally ill, live in poverty, suffer from addiction, and etc. The choices folks make when they have limited power to act as agents in their lives can feel confusing to folks who have more stability and agency. It can also be difficult to get people to engage in a meaningful way other than to giving money so that they feel absolved of any guilt that they may feel. We are not here to assuage your guilt. We're here to build solidarity so that we can continue to build a future where we exist and all of our needs are met. And some needs are difficult to meet. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. When we are in community with people who are mentally ill, who live in deep poverty, who suffer from addiction, sometimes folks with limited choice make choices that can feel confusing to other people. The choices that folks in those circumstances are making are the choices that they can make, right? I hope that that makes sense to folks who are listening. If you have very little power, then your ability to make choices are very limited. And so sometimes the choices that you make, let's say, um, I have $10, and what I choose to do with that $10 is to buy a pack of cigarettes. Well, that can feel confusing to someone who's stably housed or who is more mentally well than I am. But for me, who may be choosing to spend that $10 on a pack of cigarettes, that pack of cigarettes provides me the coping mechanism that I might need to be able to deal with sleeping in a crowded shelter or on the street for the night, or to get through the next 2 days without having adequate food. So that's kind of what we mean by the choices can feel confusing. Just because those choices feel confusing does not mean that those choices are bad choices or that they would be the right choices for someone else. Each individual person in their own circumstance typically knows what the best choices for them are. And our job is to be able to help support those choices and meet their needs.
I,
Even, go ahead.
sorry. I think a lot of it is just realizing as a helper, I will call us in the mutual aid community helpers, is that we can't choose how people harm reduce. And I think buying a pack of cigarettes instead of using harder drugs, as somebody who works in addiction now, is a form of harm reduction. And I think that, what people do with their money is none of our business. And I think that is a huge part that you have to understand if you're going to help in mutual aid. We are here to help. We are not just not here to judge. We are not here to tell you what to do. We also have limits in the ways that we can help. And I also think we have to think about the boundaries that we must have. And I know that Opal and I in the past have helped people and continue to help people who suffer from mental illness. I'm mentally ill. I've been in a space where I have harmed others and where I was trying to do harm reduction for myself and it may have harmed others. And I think that sometimes when you're in that position, or often you don't know that you're harming someone else. So I think it is up to us as helpers to realize our boundaries because sometimes we may be helping someone in a situation that might get worse with our help. And so I think in that case, we typically take on a caregiver role and we need to decide, do I need to step back? Do I need to ask for more help? Is this, do I need to, or do I want to continue helping this person? And those are really hard questions to ask yourself in these situations because I know that most of you, if not all of you, are here because you want to help. But it's not always clear. And to Opal's point, it can be confusing. Um,
And
Go
this
ahead.
is why it's so important that we do this work in community, that we have other people that we can bounce things off of, that we can get a gut check from, that we can call, that we can tag in if we feel like we're out of our depth or over our head. Um, and it is all a balance. It's complicated. It's hard work, and it does making these choices and navigating these circumstances requires us to be deeply engaged with the community itself, right? There are roles for everyone, and if someone's capacity is I have the capacity to give money or I have the capacity to do a food drive, that's helpful and useful as well. But if you're going to be engaged in a mutual aid community, if you're going to really build that community together, it's hard and it takes a lot to navigate. It's not easy work. Um, which brings us to the point of it can be difficult to get people to engage. Um, most people in the United States have $5 to give somebody once a week. That's just, that's reality. Great. Again, that is useful. That is helpful. We need your $5. Please give us your $5. It's really helpful. But there are other ways, there are other kinds of mutual aid. There are other things. Maybe it's cooking a meal. Maybe it's checking on a neighbor. Maybe it's shoveling someone's sidewalk, walking a child to school, picking up the dog waste from someone's yard. There are countless ways that we need people to engage, especially in the disability space. We need people whose bodies work in different ways to be able to do things such as lift heavy things or reach tall shelves or drive someone to a place that they can't reach via public transit. Or there are countless ways to engage. Getting people to engage can be difficult.
Yes. And also to add to that, to my earlier point about not having to be on the front lines per se in the movement, um, I think movement work, especially mutual aid work, allows us to do things from home as well. So some other ways that you can help people is you can help them make a phone call to their provider. You can help them coordinate services. You can help them with being present in some way for a difficult conversation with family or friends. There's so many different ways you can help from home, and the larger mutual aid network as well. A lot of it does happen online or in different chats. And so even just sharing things helps, or being able to ask an organization, what do you need? And a lot of times, I know at least for Opal and I, it's like, I need someone to help with social media because we're doing great work, but that often falls to the wayside, that people can't see the work that's being done. And then, even more importantly, know where they can get help. So I think, there are so many ways and so many possibilities, which we will actually be talking about possibilities of mutual aid next. And I love that we've evolved over the years, over the many years that I know Opal and I have been organizing into that. I'm going to read the ID on this slide before we move to the next slide. So on this slide, we have three people standing on a broken heart with circles of a house, an hourglass, and a cash symbol. One person holds a baby, a child holds a box with various things in it, and the other person looks distressed with lightning bolts around them. Next slide, please. So this is a very short list of possibilities in mutual aid. I do say what else at the end of this, and I will say we're not going to answer that right now, but there will be plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end. But some examples of possibilities in mutual aid is have medical needs filled, feed the hungry, house the unhoused, care for the sick, and erase medical debt. And believe it or not, we can do all of these things outside of governmental systems. And I think that many of us are already working on them, and hopefully a lot of you can join us in that effort. Opal, do you have any other possibilities? I'm sure you do, floating around in your head.
One thing that I've been taken with lately is there's a trend that I believe started on TikTok, at least that is what I am told by younger folks, in which groups of young adults, and I guess adults, period, but TikTok makes me think young adults, are getting together to do things like their own life admin tasks in a group together. They'll get together and like open their mail, do paperwork together. That is an example of a small mutual aid kind of space. They are getting together to support one another's executive function in order to take care of some outstanding tasks. So there's a little fun one. The ID on the slide, there's an image that shows a community including farmland, buildings, a tent, stars, sunshine, and trees, with a cow in the bottom right and swimming fish in the bottom left. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about building communities. Building mutual aid communities. We've been talking a little bit about that throughout the whole presentation so far. So when we build our communities and coalitions, we must consider the following. Who has the least access? Who has the least representation? Who has the least financial mobility? We must address existing inequalities, even in marginalized communities such as the disability community. This means centering and uplifting the voices and work of our most multi-marginalized community members. So when we're building these communities, we again, we need to deeply engage. It has to be person to person. If I don't understand who my folks are, then I can't possibly begin to understand how to meet their needs and engage them. One thing that we haven't touched on so far, which I'll touch very briefly on here, when we're building communities, we need to consider what everyone has to contribute as well as what everyone's needs are. Every human has something to contribute. If your contribution is simply your presence, that you exist. My youngest son likes to say, we are all alive humans. And if being an alive human is the thing that you have to contribute, that's beautiful and valuable and necessary within these communities. So we have to consider what can we bring and what do we have to offer and what needs do we have? And again, part of that is considering who are we engaging and who has the least, and deliberately engaging the folks who historically have the least access to resources, community representation, and so on. Daeja, what do you have to add?
I will be, I think, a lot more specific because I have a lot of opinions about who is centered in the disability community often. And believe it or not, it mirrors many other communities in that it is often centered around white people, sometimes those who are more privileged than others. And as somebody who does disability work, it's pretty upsetting a lot of times that it is so much harder to get help for a person of color or a queer or trans person in our community than it is for a white person or a white passing person to get help in our community. It's really frustrating. And I think that's why, to Opal's point, the engagement piece is really important because it brings a lot of understanding into the space and it allows you to learn in our community, not just doing mutual aid. Mutual aid is a part of community, right? So, in building the community, we need to listen to each other, we need to speak to each other, and we need to be able to learn from each other. And I think coming into these spaces, which are largely white, we have to realize, hey, there is some inequity here that needs to be addressed. And sometimes realize how much space we take up. And also, as more multi-marginalized people, how much more space we could take up. I think that our most marginalized people are afraid to take up space for so many reasons. Right now, with the administration, sorry, I was trying not to bring this up, but with our federal administration, a lot of people are really scared to speak up and be in the spotlight. And I think, and I know that it is your jobs as white people who are the helpers to uplift our most marginalized people. And I just wanted to remind everyone of that. I think about it pretty constantly, and um, it really doesn't feel good. But I think that if we bring more people in to learn the work and to be a part of the community, I think that the community gets built around the work too, is another thing, is when you come in and start to do the work, we start to get to know each other and each other's typical needs and each other's typical strengths and offerings. And I really love that. And I think that that tends to help with the inequities, right? Because we realize, to Opal's point, these are the things we have to give. These are the things that we need. And then think often about, hey, does somebody have more needs than I do? Or how much access do I have versus how much access the another person has? And although I overcommit, Opal says, I would like to be the Black person in the room, the Black mentally ill girl, if nobody else will, because who has the least representation is also a question we must ask. And if I can bring anyone along with me and make sure that we have as much representation as possible from our immigrant community, our queer community, our Black community, and those who suffer from illnesses that are invisible, then those are the people that I would like to bring along into this space along with the rest of us, because I think that we belong in this space, not just because we have needs, but because we have offerings and because people want to do the work. They just don't have a way in. So this is your way in. And that I said a lot of things, so I'm gonna I'm gonna stop with the things now.
Daeja, the things that you had to say are critically important for folks to hear, so I'm glad you said them. For my white folks listening right now here to talk about building community, if if we want our community to represent our broader community, like our city or our neighborhood or so on, we have to make those spaces safe for Black and brown people to step into. Black and brown people can't step into a space if they don't feel safe stepping into it. So be intentional, be very intentional about how you're building those communities to make sure that folks feel safe and comfortable stepping in. I'm going to read the image ID, unless Deja, okay. The ID is, the image on the screen is a group of 4 youth of different races sitting in front of a bookcase, one in a wheelchair. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about mutual aid in action and groups and things that currently already exist. So locally, we have a lot of mutual aid going on here, and Deja and I are in Pittsburgh. We're aware that this is a statewide presentation, but we are in Pittsburgh, and our organizations both focus in Pittsburgh. So we have a lot of mutual aid going on in Pittsburgh, and what does that look like? That looks like feeding people, housing people, clothing people, taking people to doctor's appointments, cleaning their homes. Shoveling their sidewalks, walking their pets, caring for their children. Again, anything that you can think of that a person could need are things that people are already doing here in Pittsburgh to provide mutual aid. Some of the groups that we have already doing mutual aid here in Pittsburgh are DPMA, that's Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid. We will link to that group. I think it's linked on a slide later. Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid is the largest mutual aid group in this little region. Um, in order to be part of this group, you have to live in Allegheny County or have heavy in-person physical ties to Allegheny County, meaning like your child goes to school in Allegheny County and you work in Allegheny County, though maybe you live in Canonsburg or whatever. Within that group, gosh, we raised $100,000 in small person-to-person donations in a 12-month period, and we continue to do that. Gosh, Deja, would you like to talk a little bit about, well, DPMA does just about anything that a person could possibly need. That if you are if there is a thing that you might need, information, resources, physical help, money, tangible things, a person to talk to, a social group, DPMA does that. Uh, Deja founded Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality, so I'm going to let her talk about that.
Okay, thank you. So originally, Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality was founded as a way to continue the conversation from the Intersectional Feminist March that happened in January 2017. Since then, we've grown to be an organization who educates people across the board about movement work, including labor, disability, education, how to be an ally, intersectionality 101, um, the LGBTQ community. We actually ran a series where we were able to do lectures on all of those things, which was great during COVID. And we have also become one of the biggest mutual aid groups in the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County area. Speaking of having $5 to give, we do $5 Fridays, where if you have $5 to give or you have more to give, we we words are hard sometimes. We fundraise for our most marginalized, particularly a lot of the times our queer community, youth, single parents often, and our Black and Brown community and our disabled community. So we do let people know that those are the people who we prioritize whenever we grant money to folks. And I don't mean grant as in grants, but give people money that we have fundraised for them. We also do a lot of like resourcing. We're actually turning my house into a fridge and a pantry. We take a lot of donations, we do bake sales, all kinds of stuff, anything that we can do to help out our community members. Because again, it's not just about giving money. I'm a poor person. I don't have money to give, but I can drive a meal to you. I can more than likely get someone to buy you groceries and drop them off. I can probably get you clothing. I was able to get people to donate over $1,000 in food for a backpack drive for my school district. So if there is something that you want done, I guarantee you that someone in one of these groups can help you get that done in Allegheny County. Um, and then do
I
we
also
want to
just wanted to
go ahead?
briefly mention that both DPMA and PFI, as mutual aid organizations, these things are provided by community members to community members without an organization in between, right? So there isn't a barrier. We don't require like there isn't a, if you say I don't have dinner tonight, can you help? We don't make you fill out a form and prove it. We just say, okay, great, you're hungry, let's feed you.
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah.
Some other folks doing the work here in Pittsburgh, there's Pittsburgh Food Not Bombs, Our Streets Collective, Rice Pittsburgh, and all three of those serve the whole community. And then there's Sisters. Sisters serves our transgender community, and there's Trans Uniting, who also serves our transgender community.
Yep. I mean, we could say so many things about these organizations, honestly.
But they are
Oh,
linked in the chat.
they're linked. Oh, yes. Sorry, I missed that they are there now. They are linked in the chat, so you can find out more about them. Some of them only have Instagrams and some of them have websites. As Elisa said earlier, you can reach out to Access Mob with any questions. And we also have a resource guide that Access Mob will be sending out as well. I think we can go to the next slide unless we have more to say. Okay.
Next slide.
Yep.
This is how you can support PCDJ. That's my organization who runs DPMA. All these acronyms. PCDJ is Pittsburgh Center for Disability Justice. DPMA is Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid. DPMA is a project of PCDJ. So to support our work in mutual aid, and boy, could we use it, you can scan that QR code, and any donation of any size is very welcome. And we appreciate all of you so much.
So you can support Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality, which is also known largely as PFI, more acronyms. This is the link, this is a QR code to our link tree, which we continually update, like our wish list for things that folks often need, which are things like hand warmers, blankets, humidifiers, things like that. Um, and we will be updating with more things on our link tree now that we have this huge room of people who want to help us. So that's amazing. Opal, did you have anything else to say about supporting us?
Uh, Not at this time. I think we could go to our next slide.
Oh, follow PFI on Instagram. It's at PGHFem. That's where most of our things are. And we have a group on Facebook, but it's big enough. So follow us on Instagram, find us there. Go ahead, Opal.
We have a resources list. If you'd like to dive into learning more about mutual aid, this presentation is only an hour with then 30 minutes or so Q&A. So we didn't have a lot of time to dig deeply into mutual aid this evening, and the history and all of those things. So we have some resources for you. There are some links on this page to Mutual Aid NYC, to Sydney, the writing that I referenced first, Mutual Aid: A Factor for Revolution. There's Dean Spade. Dean Spade is the dude who does all the mutual aid writing and talk that people know the name of most recognizably. So Dean Spade's book, Mutual Aid: Building Solidarity Through This Crisis and the Next. Leah Lakshmi, her book, their book, I believe, Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice, is one of my favorite books that exists at all. I suggest all of you read it if you're able. There's Let This Radicalize You. There's a podcast, the 1 Million Experiments podcast, and then there's a YouTube link for an introduction to mutual aid. That one is by, I believe that's Dean Spade's collective, or Dean Spade was involved in the work to do that 101 on YouTube. And all of those links are also in the chat and will be coming, Access Mob will be sending those out after the presentation as well. I think we're on to the next slide.
The
Hey, look at
moment
that.
you've all been waiting for.
We are happy to talk to you and take questions and dig in a lot more.
Elisa.
So I just wanted to get on. Katie, I can't see because of the hosting the slides. I can't see who has their hand raised. Could you please take control of the Q&A, both calling on people and reading from the chat?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Please either type your question into the chat or raise your hand. If you are on your phone, I just close this page, but it is *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute, and just wait for Katie to call on you.
We would love to talk about
Yes. That will be in the resources list that will be sent out. It has the links to both of those QR codes.
you could go to our Pittsburgh Center for Disability Justice has only recently changed our name, and our website is currently undergoing change um, to reflect that name change. But if you go to autisticpgh.org, and if someone who has the ability could type that into chat, that is our website. It's still there. There's a PayPal link, and there's a link to sign up for our newsletter. You could do both there. We're also on Facebook. If you search Facebook for Pittsburgh Center for Disability Justice, you'll find our main organizational webpage. And then if you're local to Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, you can join our Facebook group by searching Facebook for Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid.
I'm going to interrupt. So I just got a private message from someone saying the chat is still disabled. For those folks who want to have their thing read out loud by the host, if you open up the chat function and there is a button that says new chat, you can see there should be either send message to host or to access Mob Pittsburgh. If you send a message there, that is what will come up, or that's how our host will be able to see your questions and read them out.
Very quickly, I also just got a private message about joining Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid. I would like to tell all of you there are questions that you have to maybe sometimes search for when you request to join. There are questions that are asked in order to join the group. Those questions require typed answers. They're not a radial check yes or no. That's a different thing. So in order to join the group, you do have to answer the group questions. That's all.
In the chat, we have.
I actually do see hands being
In the
raised.
chat, we have a question from Corinne Durham. Hi, how can we get organized with the two organizations to start volunteering other than with social media?
So again, if you're in the Pittsburgh area, join Pittsburgh Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid. And you can, again, go to our website, join our newsletter, and calls for volunteers go out that way. Within Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid, we're just about to start a food access program. We could really use volunteer help for that. I know that Daeja has a lot of need for folks to cook meals for food distributions. You want to say more about that, Daeja?
Yes. Sorry. In my brain, I had something else to say. It's okay. Brain. Okay. Yes. I often work with Our Streets Collective, Food Not Bombs, and Rice to provide meals for folks. It's something that is newer to PFI. I try to sometimes just be an organizer that's not a part of PFI, but that doesn't really exist anymore. So PFI, I guess I would say, collaborates with these organizations to provide meals for folks. And then I will also have a fridge and pantry at my house in Millvale, in which now you would be able to drop off meals to the fridge and drop off pantry items as well as snacks. And we accept things for adults and children. So we're pretty focused on helping to feed children, actually, as well. And the other thing in my brain was, oh, you can go to our website, pghfem.org, for Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality, and you can send us a message. And that is a good way to contact us to get involved. Unfortunately, a lot of the way we communicate is on social media, but we also, a lot of us communicate on other channels once you get involved. So if you send us a message, we'll be able to get you connected to those ways that we communicate with everyone, the needs that we have for folks to get involved.
Yeah, we do have a Discord server. But in order to access the Discord server, we have to know you. We have to know you first. And we do have a Signal group. But again, we have to know you before we give access to those things. So we're not just on Facebook, but we do need to get to know you before you have access to those more vulnerable spaces. There are so many ways to get involved, though, once you find us. So many ways to volunteer
I ask things of people
all
often.
the time. Daeja and I have no shame. We will ask you, hey, do this, please.
Help.
Could I add in something that I just
Yeah.
wanted, it hadn't been addressed? You do not have to be disabled to join Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid for two reasons. One of which is, for all that we have a lot of disabled folks who are in need of aid, we need people who are resourced to give the money. We need people who are physically able to climb the ladder to change the light bulb. So even if you're not currently disabled, or as I call you, currently abled, if you are currently able, you are still welcome to join the group. And the other thing is that disability is a normal part of the human experience. The longer you live, the more likely it is that you or someone you love will become disabled, even if it's temporary. And you want to start advocating now and getting into these spaces now to get the world ready for when you need it to be accessible. So, what a great way, if you break your leg in the snow out there, what a great way to get some aid if you're already involved with the community. So no one had said that yet, and I just wanted to point that out.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Elisa.
You always have something great to add. We
The
will
next
forget things.
The next question in chat is, what is the best organization to get involved with in light of recent events, parentheses, ICE?
I do not think that we're going to be able to dig into that here today. You can look for Frontline Dignity, Casa San Jose, the Latino Family Center. Daeja, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I will also say we can't really dig into that, and I will say part of it is confidentiality reasons. But if you personally know us, sorry for the folks who don't, please reach out. And if you are a trusted community member, we will try to get you connected with some of those things. I will also say that I am going to New York to learn some ICE defense things next month. So if you would like to reach out to Pittsburgh Feminists for Intersectionality, again, on our website, you can do that. We will probably see more ICE defense things happening this year, but right now, a lot of those efforts are confidential.
Thanks. This is sort of a larger question because the more I hear about about mutual aid, I feel like the more I have to learn, because people who know me know that I work in a very large organization. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how mutual organizations get bigger and how they grow. And is there an ideal size, or is it a little bit like buy nothing groups where once they get too big, they splinter off and become separate groups so you can still preserve community?
That
I
is a
will,
really good question.
yes, I will start because I have a shorter answer, to be honest. With Pittsburgh Feminists, with PFI, if you are inactive in our group, we typically remove you. But we usually give a warning. We let folks know, hey, if you are not participating in our community, then you are not doing mutual aid and you are not doing community work with us. And so we would like to free up space for folks who want to be involved in the community. So if you've never made a post, never commented, never shared a fundraiser or a post or anything like that, we look at that history and we start to remove people. So that's a short answer.
That's a good short answer. So I've been doing this for a long time. And again, I've done this work in all over the country for 35 years. Um, and what I have found throughout that experience is that, yes, there does seem to be a tipping point in which a community, a group, an organization, a loose collective becomes larger or unwieldy. But that tipping point seems to be individual to each group or community or organization. Um, and often they do fracture into smaller groups or communities or organizations. But what's happening there is an organic process in which that larger community is becoming what it needs to be. That's not something to avoid. That's something to allow to grow naturally as it will. Um, Donna also asked how to start building a community. Um, that, like Deja said, closer to the beginning of the talk this evening, the community follows the work and the work follows the community. And so if you find need, any need, any need, and you start to think about how to fill that need, then you are beginning to build community. And within that helping globe, that snow globe of help, right? You will start to build community. You'll start to engage with one another, know one another more. Other people will just naturally hear about it or want to be involved. And there's also like the more formal ways to meet people and find community, like religious organizations, community groups, volunteer, like there's all of those ways to meet people as well. But the more organic kind of way of grassroots building is a person talks to a person and then they think about it. Like one of when I spent 20 years doing immigration justice work, and within that space, one of the things we would tell folks is there's always a need for English language learning, and through teaching English language informally or in informal groups, you'll be in contact with folks who will need other things like food, clothing, housing, healthcare, childcare, etc. But yeah, that's kind of the short and the long answer. Yes, there's a tipping point. It's organic for each thing, and it kind of happens when it does. Yes, groups will splinter, but that's a good thing. Um, and you kind of build things by engaging people directly.
I also want to say, sometimes groups and chats can get out of hand large, and it's unnecessary. And I will also say, as somebody who focuses a lot on safety in the community, it's really not safe to have just 100 people you don't know in a chat. Um, so that's why I think Opal focuses so much on the community engagement aspect. And I think that we have to be very careful, especially now, in the way that we join groups and communicate. I know that we all want to help, but I think taking a moment and taking a step back to think, okay, how can I help? And what group or groups might be the best for me to help, so that you're not putting yourself in a space where you are in maybe a bunch of chats or groups that are large and might be unsafe, or just adding yourself to things so that you can help. I think you need to be intentional and strategic about where you are putting yourself and how you decide to help.
To Deja's point very quickly, also, yes, the larger a space, the more need there is for top-down leadership. And I know we don't like that. I know we love horizontal leadership and we love sharing power, and I do too. And I want to share power and build leaders. But if a space like Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid has 1,500 group members, If a space is that large, we have to have some top-down leadership with rule structures and community agreements. We have to have some expectations around behavior and vetting to the best of our ability. Those things are important too. Do we have other people with their hands up or other questions in chat?
We have
We
a
do.
bunch more questions.
Let me just interrupt. I'm going to stop the screen share since there's no more slides. One of the interpreters
Yes,
requested
thank you.
that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The next question from Angelica Reyes was, you mentioned an org wanting Spanish-speaking volunteers. Can you drop that name again?
That was in LA. But here in Pittsburgh, the Latino Family Center and Casa San Jose are always looking for Spanish-speaking volunteers.
I will also add Pittsburghers for Public Transit to that. They often work. I know some of you are on this. Thank you for coming. They often work with Spanish speakers as well. So.
The next question from Pepper Rueda. Are you open to collaborating on food distro in a slightly expanded capacity? This person can elaborate if needed.
Please elaborate.
Probably. Oh, I was just going to say probably. Please contact us privately so we can.
Just briefly elaborate, but yes, Opal's answer is also correct, but yes, don't know what that means. Elaborate, please.
I am going to move on, Pepper. If you reply or if you raise your hand, we will come back to you as needed. Next question. Hi, I have a friend who parents a 9th grader that's interested in helping with mutual aid. Can you list some ways and ideas I could pass along to them and their parents? They have an idea to make Ziploc bags of unhoused.
Yeah.
I will move on, Pepper. Hello? If you reply or if you raise your hand, back to you as needed. Next question.
Could we make sure that person is muted?
I believe that was Pepper. Pepper, are you trying to say something? All right, raise your hand or put it in the chat and I'll come back to you.
I'll quickly try to answer the question about 9th grader.
There's actually further information.
Okay.
They have an idea to make Ziploc bags of supplies and passing that out to the unhoused.
Okay, so there are groups already.
I did briefly, but then realized you were moving on.
Raise your hand or put it in the chat and I'll come back to you.
I'll quickly try to answer the question about. Okay. Helping unhoused neighbors. Our Streets Collective does a lot of work with helping our unhoused neighbors. The Brashear Association is a group that engages our youth and helps our unhoused neighbors as well. I would suggest if the youth would like to start, a youth who's not been connected into that work previously, I would suggest that they start by volunteering with one of those kinds of organizations first.
Yes. Yes. I was also going to say they can drop stuff off in the pantry. We could try to do something age-friendly with your school district. Yeah, I'm just keeping in mind that this is a minor and we would want a parent to be with them, or would want to do something with other minors with parental and adult figures around, rather than just going to a distribution. So yeah, I think our Streets Collective or the Brashear Association, I would probably say the Brashear Association. And then with our Streets Collective, if you want to reach out, somebody can probably give you some ideas. Or if you want to reach out to Pittsburgh Feminists, I will get back to you because I also work with our streets and would love to talk to them about how we would want to handle a minor helping out.
The next question comes from Nikki D. We've been hearing a lot about community defense lately. Any thoughts on how mutual aid plays a role in community defense? P.S. All mutual aid is defense against folks harming our communities.
I love the last thing that Nikki D just shared there, that this is all defense. That is true. Nikki, that is a question that is better addressed privately within small community. It's within small group. So if you're interested in community defense in the way that is implied, reach out directly.
Do we
Next.
have a way for people to reach out to us directly?
We will well, we've shared our organizations, so you can find us through our organizations. We can also put our email addresses in the chat.
If you email accessmobpittsburgh@gmail.com, we will forward information to Daeja and Opal.
Nikki also has their hand up. I'm not sure if they had something to add. Nikki, did you have something to add before we move on?
Yeah, can I clarify that? I think maybe the way I wanted to phrase that question was people talk a lot about community defense, and maybe a way to shift the idea of what people think of as defense actually goes back to my PS, where anything that people do to help each other is a form of defending the people we care about. And that can just be calling somebody when they're having a bad day.
That is a really great point that I'm glad that you shared. Thank you, Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
Let's I
All
know
right.
that we still have a bunch of
Yep.
questions, so Deja and I are going to try to keep our answers brief so we can try to get to everybody.
The follow-up from Pepper is that Pepper and their roommate make regular deliveries from the food bank and some other distros to folks who can't access them due to disabilities, lack of transportation, etc. Since it's just the two of them and they're both disabled themselves, they've been hoping to find other folks who'd like to build on this with them.
Amazing. We
Yay.
love that.
Yay. Opal, did you want to answer?
Oh, that does not sound like a question that needs an answer. Thank you, Pepper. We really hope that other people will get involved in that too, and that is a thing that can be built within the structures of DPMA if you're interested in that.
And I also think that we're already connected, so if you just message us, we can talk about that.
We have a contribution from Sarah Kendall regarding Donna's question about building community. It's a good idea to make certain the type of group that you're looking for doesn't always exist. We white women have a regrettable tendency to want to start something new rather than joining and being led by people of color. As a lot of content creators of color have been reminding me on my feed lately, this work isn't only becoming necessary now. One of the best things we can do as white women is to sit back in the back and let other people who have been here longer determine community needs. I think East End Cooperative Ministries also works with the unhoused population.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, every word of that. Love it. Yes.
The next question from Donna Seiler. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. What is a useful time commitment from community members for your groups?
If you can give us an hour a month, that's useful. Honest to goodness. For PFI, I don't want to speak for Deja, but for PFI, just donating $5 every Friday is very useful. Asking your coworkers if they can donate $5 every Friday would be incredibly useful and probably take you 10 minutes. There are ways to be involved that take minimal time.
Next question.
From Margot, are there any mutual aid networks or orgs in Pittsburgh for disabled folks who need personal care assistance at home?
Yes, Disabled Pittsburgh Mutual Aid. One of the things that we're doing this year are Skillshare events in which disabled community members along with medical providers, teach the skills for things like personal care attendants or other various kinds of attendant care to one another on a volunteer basis so that we can fill the gaps in care so that folks don't have to go without care, that critical care. So yes, that is a thing that we are currently doing. And again, we could use your support in doing it. We could use your financial support, but we could also use your volunteer support. Next question.
That is all the questions that I have in messages. Remember, if you would like to ask a question to the presenters, to raise your hand in Zoom or send a message to me, the moderator.
We're doing a good job here. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. We'll give it a moment before we close the questions. We have some time.
I love all the conversation that we've been generating and all the thoughts and ideas that we're sharing. What a great way to build community right here and right now.
It looks like Monica has her hand up.
Opal, I am happy to volunteer to teach people whatever skills they need.
Absolutely. You are on my short list of a person to teach us wound care, especially.
I will drag some other people, not drag, wrong word, but I will get who I can from where I work as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, while we take a second, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Access Mob Pittsburgh, which is not a mutual aid group, but we are very firmly aligned with those groups. So we have a lot of folks here tonight. You know, you are all wonderful for coming out who are completely unfamiliar with disability spaces and Access Mob. And the way I describe us often is that there is a time and a place for a loud, angry protest, and I am a big fan of that. But there's also a time and a place for catching more flies with honey than with vinegar. And so Access Mob takes that approach to disability advocacy through education, economic incentives, holding community lecture nights like this. And so we're always, encouraging people to get involved, especially, this year we're hoping to get some more events going. I make no promises, but my dream is to have a living will workshop where we can have a professional come help people craft their living wills. We have other events I'll be talking about later coming up, but we're always looking for people who are interested in getting involved. We'd also love a social media person, just saying, but email us at accessmobpittsburgh@gmail.com if you are interested in getting involved. Katie, did we get anyone else?
Yes, I'm paging through it all. Bear with me. Michael James asked, what is the role of mutual aid in the world now?
What a big
That's a
question.
big, that's a big one.
Maybe let's have that
Wow.
as our final question because we're getting close to time. So let that be your last question for tonight.
Great. We can do this. Opal, do you have any
Oh,
thoughts?
I thought Elisa was saying skip over that one.
No. I think that would be a great final question. I think that's a great ending point.
Okay. What is the role of mutual aid in the world today? My goodness. So gosh, it almost feels like it's so big. Where do you start, right?
Yeah.
It's how it's how we have to live. It's how we have to we have to shift away from external systems and um, shift away from outsourcing our needs and our the ways that we care for ourselves and each other, away from outsourcing those to giant systems, giant faceless machines or whatever, and into person-to-person communities. We have the ability, we have everything that we need right now to feed and clothe and house and care for and educate every human on this planet. We have the resources. We have the capability. We have the power to do that now. We could just do that if we felt empowered to, like, if we had the audacity to try, if we had the will to dream it. And I know I sound a little woo right now, but I mean it. We can do this, and that's what mutual aid does. That's what mutual aid does. We dismantle those systems that separate us from one another and that separate us from our power and our agency. We dismantle those systems by connecting and empathizing and loving and caring for one another, person to person. And that is what mutual aid is and what it does at its core.
I also want to say we're not saying there should be no systems, right? We're saying we need to dismantle, well, I'm not saying that. We we need to dismantle the systems that are not person to person, that are dehumanizing us, that are failing us, right? And I think that what we're seeing in mutual aid now is that we are creating our own systems or processes or whatever you want to call them, whether it's top down, whether it's unilateral, whether it's other leadership styles. Sorry, words are hard. Um, we are creating different things, and they are person to person, and they are things that work. We talked about the possibilities, but within those possibilities, many of those things are already happening. They're just not happening on the scale of being able to feed every person, house every person. And to Opal's point, we can do that if we literally just say we will do it. We will come together. We will figure out a way to communicate with each other, to create community with each other, and build those systems. And it's not easy, right? And I want to say that because I don't want us to think that we're going to wake up tomorrow and change the world. I have a coffee mug that literally says, you cannot do that. You can't solve all the world's problems today. Um, but I think that together we can strategically and intentionally um, attack the problems that we are having and provide access to the things that we do need that are not built into those systems. And I do want to say, as someone who's a social worker and continues to learn, um, a lot of the things that we have that are systemic today are things that came out of the community, right? Which we learned today. EMTs, free breakfast programs, free lunch programs, after school time, those kind of programs. Um, so I
Even
think,
even taxi services, right?
yeah,
Like
like
even taxi services are.
yeah, so like they're just stealing our work. So let's take it back and let's let's do what we can to build our community around systems that work. And that includes things that we didn't get to today because there's just not enough time to get to everything, like restorative justice and transformative justice. So like building those systems and building community around making sure that we do have accountability and making sure that we do have safety in our spaces, and to Opal's point, like making sure that people feel safe coming to the space, but also making sure that we regulate and vet people, because I know a lot of us are scared. It's not, we're not in a fun place. And so we want to make sure that everyone is safe while we are building these things. But I do believe that there's a lot that's possible. And
And
we are
how
done.
beautiful, how absolutely beautiful. Dream it. The thing that I want to leave you with tonight is have the audacity to dream. Have the audacity to dream. How beautiful will the world be when we, as we do this, as we are doing this. Thank you all for listening to us talk at you for the last hour and a half. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, everybody. Sorry, we didn't have 3 hours, but
If we have enough popular demand, maybe we do a part 2. Who knows?
sure.
I just want to again thank everyone else, or everyone here for coming out tonight. On the screen right now is a list of our upcoming events for Access Mob Pittsburgh. There are QR codes on the side for the 2 lecture nights that I'll read off in a second. If you just go to accessmobpittsburgh.org and on top there is a drop down menu that says community lecture series. That's how you can get links to what's going on there. And for the safe sidewalk crew training, and I'll discuss those in a second, if you go to pittsburghwalks.org, click safe sidewalks crew on top, and there'll be a thing on the bottom about this. Our next 2 community lecture nights on Monday, March 30th, we have Thinking Outside of the Box, Employment and Persons with Disabilities. And on Monday, May 18th, we have More Than Words, Empowering Nonverbal Youth Through Multimodal Communication Access. I forgot to say that apparently the links are going to go in the chat. On Saturday, February 14th at 11 a.m., so the Safe Sidewalks Crew is a program that was initiated through Bike Pittsburgh, Access Mob Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh Walks, and the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to create basically a sidewalk assessment tool that's being used by the city to map out the condition of the city's sidewalks in a way that doesn't negatively impact especially low-income homeowners the way that filing 311 reports does. But the city can then use this data to determine where to best spend its money on doing its own improvements and also to leverage money for programs that can potentially create micro grants and things like that for low income homeowners to repair their sidewalks. So we're having a virtual training on February 14th, and there will be ASL interpretation at that event. And then last but not least, Access Mob runs on donations from wonderful folks like you. I do have on the screen right now, there is a PayPal link, a Cash App link, and a Venmo link, or QR code. For any of those, if you use them, please write AMP, AMP, in the payment section so that our fiscal agent sends the money to us and not to them. You can also go to accessmobpittsburgh.org/donate. And on that note, once again, I want to thank my board, Debbie, Donna, Kendra, Mallory, Monica, and Nyota. Someday we'll get some diversity and actually have a man on the board. I don't know. But
I have thoughts.
Katie,
I'm kidding.
Katie, I, cannot thank you enough for your help with running all the meeting stuff. Disability Pride Pennsylvania for being our fiscal agent and, helping us run this business. The Opportunity Fund for financing everything through their wonderful grant. Thank you to Charity and Josh for our interpreting services today. And most of all, thank you to Opal and Daeja for giving this wonderful talk. I will be sending out an email, I want to say tonight, but might not be till tomorrow, to anyone who's signed up with a survey to fill out. There will be a website that will have information on, all the resources that were provided tonight. It will have a link to the YouTube video of this talk for anyone who wants to, uh, uh, you know, go through and listen again. If you are watching this on YouTube, the links will all be in the description once I update it. And I think that's everything. So have a great night. Stay warm, stay safe. Uh, don't go outside if you don't have to. And we're all done. Katie, if you could stop the streams.